for me and my teammates, we just have to continue to attack him and continue to play downhill in a way where we play off of 2 feet. They do a lot of reaching. They do a lot of, small pushes and stuff like that. And we just have to adjust to the team that we're playing against. And I think that's the most important thing. This game one's done. We didn't play as well as we would have liked. We failed on a lot of our coverages. And we didn't come in with the attitude that was necessary to get this W. So, the pressure that they were putting on was definitely attributed to their excitement. But I think in game 2, we just have to settle in a lot earlier and be able to withstand some of their 3-point barrages that they get off of our long, threes that end up coming around the free throw line. They get out in transition, or some of our turnovers. I had too many turnovers tonight, especially in that first quarter, just trying to get my guys settled. So there's some things to look back on, but, the defensive pressure is not going to stop, so we just got to adjust.
Welcome to Inside the Mavs, presented by Aura. My name is Kevin Gray, Mavericks Pre and post-game host on the Dallas Mavericks Radio Network. Appreciate you joining me here for the latest episode of Inside the Mavs. Make sure you download and subscribe to the podcast wherever you get your podcast for free. Give it a 5-star rating and write a review for it while you're there. You can find it on iHeartRadio, Apple Podcasts, and Spotify, and wherever you get your podcast for free. And if you're watching this on my YouTube channel, at Kevin Gray Sports, like and comment on the video. And you can follow me on Twitter at Kevin Gray Sports as well. Unfortunately, the Mavericks fall in game 1 of their best-of-7 series with the Oklahoma City Thunder on Tuesday night, 117-95, a 22-point beatdown that saw the Mavericks have their worst postseason loss so far of this postseason, as the Thunder were able to move to 5-0 so far in the 2024 NBA playoffs. And for the Mavericks, they fall to 0-5 in game 1s in the Jason Kidd era. In fact, in their last 11 playoff series, the Mavericks are now 1-10 in game 1s. So unfortunately, history repeating itself once again in game 1 against the Oklahoma City Thunder, where the Mavericks simply could not get out of their own way, allowing too many offensive rebounds, second chance points, and just overall sloppy play that was not befitting of what we've seen from the Mavericks throughout the course of this season. And you say, Kevin, it's going to be a long series, a long 6-7 game series. It's just one game. But there was a lot of things that were concerning coming out of the first game that obviously has to change going into game 2. And you heard Kyrie Irving detail some of it in the opening of our show, with the energy and the focus and the right attitude to be able to deal with a young, talented, and deep Oklahoma City Thunder team that came out with the right mentality and focus from jump to really be able to take it to the Mavericks, especially in the final 3 quarters, where they outscored the Mavericks 94-72, a 22-point difference in the final 3 quarters of game 1. But for the Mavericks, it was a really difficult start for them, as they had 4 turnovers in their first 6 minutes, and they were really not able to protect the basketball, which is something that you have to do against a Thunder team that was number 1 in the NBA in steals this year at 8.5 and can really turn you over and convert off of points in terms of the turnovers. In fact, in game 1, the Thunder were able to score 22 points off of 16 Mavericks turnovers, and that simply cannot happen when you have this good of a team in the Thunder. They will make you pay for the amount of mistakes that you will make in a game, and you saw that time and time again in game 1. The game was tied at 23 at the end of the first period. One of the things that I did think was a positive early on in the game was the fact that they were knocking down some corner threes. In fact, 3 of their first 4 3-pointers that they hit were from the corners, and we know that the Thunder give up a ton of corner threes. In fact, nearly 13% of the shots that they give up are from the corners in downtown. And Josh Green had a couple of 3-pointers that he made. PJ Washington had a 3-pointer that he made from the corner. So attacking them in terms of what they don't do well, I thought the Mavericks were able to do some of that well in the first quarter. But Shai Gilgeous-Alexander had 8 points in that first quarter. Luka Dončić had 8 for the Mavericks as well. And one of the hallmarks that we've seen throughout the second half of the NBA season is the fact that the NBA, in terms of the officiating, has been allowing teams to play. The whistle was extremely tight in game 1, and the Mavericks simply didn't adjust to it. A lot of early foul trouble for Daniel Gafford for Derek Lively II, among many others. PJ Washington picking up 3 fouls in the first half as well, where he had to sit, where he picked up his third foul as far as that was concerned, with 8 minutes left in the second quarter. So you saw plenty of times where the Dallas Mavericks got into too much foul trouble, which allowed Shai Gilgeous-Alexander and the Oklahoma City Thunder to get to the free throw line. In fact, when you look at the first half numbers, based on what they were able to do to get to the free throw line, the Thunder went to the line 22 times in the first half, going 17 of 22 from the line. In fact, Shai Gilgeous-Alexander went to the line 11 times, going 9 of 11. And you can say what you want about the foul merchant that Shai Gilgeous-Alexander can be at times, but he was able to play to what the officiating was dictating in game one, and the Mavericks simply weren't able to adjust to it, and they found themselves in plenty of foul trouble. In fact, with 5 minutes left in the first half, PJ Washington had 3 fouls, Daniel Gafford had 2 fouls, Derek Lively II had 2 fouls, Derrick Jones Jr. also had 2 fouls, and as I mentioned just a second ago, Washington picked up his third foul with 8 minutes left in the second quarter. So for the Mavericks, they've got to be able to ensure that they are ebbing and flowing with the game, but not putting a team like the Thunder, who is terrific offensively, on the free throw line to get easy points. And you saw that too much, especially in the first half. But tied at 23 at the end of one. Then we go on to the second quarter, where the Thunder were able to take a 29-25 lead less than 2 minutes into the period. But the Mavericks are able to respond with a 6-0 run of their own to take a 2-point lead after a Derek Lively dunk forced a timeout with 3 minutes into the second quarter. But then the Thunder were able to respond on a 16-5 run over a 5-minute span to take a 46-38 lead after a Shai Gilgeous-Alexander jumper with 4.5 minutes left in the first half, as they got a big second quarter from Aaron Wiggins, who had 12 points in that second period. He and SGA combined for 23 of the Thunder's 39 points, and that's where the game really turned around for them. You look at what happened in that second quarter based on what they were able to do. The Thunder scoring 39 points in that second quarter. While, yes, they only went 3 of 10 from downtown and shot 45% overall, you look what they were able to do. 14 of their 39 points in that second quarter came from the free throw line, as they went to the free throw line 17 times in that second quarter alone. As we just mentioned, they went 17 of 22 in the first half, a majority of that coming in the second quarter, where they were able to get a lot of easy points at the charity stripe. The Mavericks saw themselves with Derrick Jones Jr. knocking down a 3 to stop what was a 9-2 run at the time to cut the lead to 2, but the Oklahoma City Thunder were able to get to their spots when they wanted to, and simply too much, especially in the first half, allowing them to build what was a 9-point lead at halftime. But one of the most disappointing aspects of what we saw in game one that's got to improve in game two is the amount of energy and effort when it comes to getting after loose balls and not allowing for second chance opportunities. Because one of the things that the Thunder did not do well during the regular season, which was rebound on the offensive glass. In fact, they were second worst in the NBA in offensive rebounding at just under 9 offensive boards per game. You look at what they did in the first half alone, they were able to really dominate on the offensive glass. In fact, they had 10 offensive rebounds in the first half and out-rebounded the Mavericks 27-21. Again, that is on Daniel Gafford, that is on Derek Lively, and the collective team rebounding that the Mavericks simply didn't do in game one, and there were too many opportunities for the Thunder to get second chance points. In fact, in that first half alone, they were able to get 15 second chance points to really be able to, again, get some more easy buckets when they didn't necessarily have to. You have to close out possessions if you're the Dallas Mavericks to not allow this team, the Thunder, to really be able to take advantage of you, and they were able to do so time and time again. More on this as we get into the second half, and specifically the troubles that Luka Dončić is having from the three-point line that's really turned into a story so far this postseason. But before we get there, let's hear from today's sponsor of our video and our podcast, and let's hear from Aura. Today's video is brought to you by Aura. Do a Google search on your name and email address to see how much information comes up about you. I was devastated by the amount of information that I could be seeing searching my name and profile, and I knew then I needed to be protected for not just myself, but also for my family. Data brokers sell your information to scammers, spammers, and anyone else who may want to target you. Your full name, email, home address, health records, your relatives, it's all out there. That's why I've been using Aura, the sponsor of today's video. Aura shows me which data brokers are selling my information and automatically submits opt-out requests for me. Cleaning up my information not only helps reduce the amount of spam I get, but it protects me from hackers who could use this information to help them access my social media accounts, bank accounts, and other sensitive information. Aura also does so much more to protect me and my family from online threats that I can't see. It's really easy to set up, so I don't have to download several different apps to get things like antivirus, VPN, password management, parental controls, identity theft insurance, and more. I get everything at one affordable price. You may already have one of these tools already, but not having Aura is like locking the front door and leaving the back door wide open. Aura is always on, doing the hard work to protect me and my family so I can focus on other tasks with peace of mind. I value my privacy and I value yours. You can go to aura.com/Kevin Gray to start your 2-week free trial. Please see the link in the description. Back here on Inside the Mavs, thank you for hanging out with us through that spot, and thank you to today's sponsor of our video and our podcast in Aura, as the Mavericks fell in Game 1 to the Oklahoma City Thunder by 22 points, 117-95, and things really started to turn around in that second quarter for the Thunder as they were able to take a 9-point lead going into halftime after outscoring the Mavericks 39-30 in that second quarter. One of the highlights of the game, though, Derrick Jones Jr. following up a Tim Hardaway Jr. missed three-pointer for that ferocious dunk for the one-handed, left-handed jam that cut the deficit to 8 with a minute and a half left in the first half. But that was really the biggest highlight, especially for the Mavericks in that second quarter, where the Mavericks simply just struggled from the three-point line. You look at what they did in game number 1 from downtown. They went 12 of 35 from 3 at 34%. And unfortunately, that saw the Thunder be able to shoot nearly 46% from downtown. And that has become one of the stories of this postseason. Not just the fact that the Mavericks continue to be inefficient from downtown, but their superstar is not able to knock down threes in this postseason as well. In fact, Luka Dončić going just 1 of 8 from the three-point line in game 1, was 6 of 19 overall for just 19 points in the game. And for a guy that shot over 38% from 3 on volume, taking nearly over 10 threes per game during the regular season, he shot under 25% from 3 in the series against the Los Angeles Clippers. And of course, in game 1, just 1 of 8 from downtown. That has become a really stressful point for this team. We saw during the second half of the year, as much as they improved on the defensive end, their three-point shooting started to take a turn. And if they are not going to be able to knock down shots from the outside to keep teams honest, which was a focal point that we talked about in the Clippers series, that has to be a focal point in this series as well, because as well as the Thunder shoot the three-point basket, that puts a lot of pressure on you to not only get stops and defending the three-point line against the Oklahoma City Thunder, but you also got to be able to make shots from the outside yourself to be able to keep up with a terrific offense that we know that was top 5 in the NBA in terms of offensive rating. Here is Luka Dončić, though, talking about what the Mavericks, and he specifically, is needing to do to improve from the three-point line and what was going on with his shot in game number 1.
Luka, obviously, we've talked about your knee. Oklahoma City is a good defense. When you look at your shooting night, what went into that?
Who cares? We lost, man. We just got to move on to the next one. I got to be better. We got to be better, and just we're known for game 1 struggling, but we got to focus. They're a great team, great defensive team, great offensive team. So it's not going to be easy at all. We got to play very good basketball and focus basketball for 48 minutes.
How can you be better?
Effort, making shots.
So Dončić saying, look, it doesn't matter. I got to improve in terms of my shots and got to be able to do so going into game 2. And yes, obviously has to change for this team, because when he's knocking down three-pointers, especially on that gorgeous step back that we know he loves to shoot, that's where things are able to change offensively for the Mavericks. And they've got to be able to be much more consistent from the three-point line, because if they don't, they'll find themselves continuously being run out of the gym if they're not going to defend the three-point line against the Thunder the way that they didn't in game number 1, which I do expect to be better in game 2 as you start to look forward toward game 2 and improvements that have to be made. We talked about closing out defensive possessions by getting defensive boards, but also you have to dominate on the offensive glass as well, because the Thunder are a team that you can be able to rebound the ball against. And you give credit to Chet Holmgren and the rest of the Thunder team for the collective team rebounding that they did. They showed more effort, they showed more energy, and they showed more poise to be able to handle what the Mavericks are throwing at them. As you look at the second half, beginning, of course, in that third quarter, where the Mavericks are down by 9 to begin the second half, the Mavericks would open up that third quarter, though, outscoring the Thunder 12-4 to cut the deficit to 1. And you felt like the Mavericks, after back-to-back three-pointers by P.J. Washington and Kyrie Irving, were really starting to settle in. We know that second half Kyrie Irving is a thing, and he has done so throughout the course of the season, performing well in the second half as they were able to use a 9-0 run capped off by that Kyrie Irving three-pointer to pull it within 1 at 66-65 as the Thunder started just 1 of 8 from the field in the first 4 minutes of that third quarter. And you felt like the Mavericks defensively were finally being able to settle in and be able to turn the Thunder over and then be able to get out in transition to be able to make some things happen. But the Thunder would respond, going on a 14-4 run themselves to take what would be an 11-point lead at 80-69. Eventually, they were able to push it up to 15 at 89-74 with less than a minute left, as Shai Gilgeous-Alexander had 10 points in that third quarter for the Thunder, as they were able to lead by 10 going into the fourth quarter after Kyrie Irving's buzzer beater 3 at the end of the third. But you look at that third quarter where the Thunder outscored the Mavericks by a point, 27-26. That's where they started to get things going from the three-point line. In fact, going 6 of 12 from 3, shooting 50% from downtown. And you look at the individuals who made those three-pointers. Shai Gilgeous-Alexander had 2. Isaiah Joe had a couple of three-pointers that he made as well. And we talk about the waves at which the Thunder are able to play because of how deep they are. And they've got a number of guys that are extremely versatile that can do a number of different things on the floor. Chet can shoot the ball from 3. Shai can shoot the ball from 3. There's a lot of guys. Lou Dort is a much improved three-point shooter as well. We saw what Andrew Wiggins, we've been able to see what Isaiah Joe's been able to do throughout the course of the year as well. They've got a lot of guys with terrific skill sets that put a lot of pressure on you. And then when you get to Jalen Williams, especially when we get to the fourth quarter, a guy that loves to close and has been in that role for the Thunder throughout the course of the year, continuing to improve. You saw him this year average 19 points per game to Jalen Williams, up that production to 21 points per game in the series against the Pelicans, and really in the fourth quarter was able to turn things up for the Oklahoma City Thunder. For the Mavericks, though, Josh Green, again, who I thought played a decent game, allowing the Mavericks to be able to knock down some three-pointers. He's got to be a factor if Dante Exum and Tim Hardaway Jr. are not going to be playing well, much like we saw again in Game 1. Tim Hardaway Jr. making his return to the Mavericks after missing the entire series against the Clippers with his ankle injury. Dante Exum, unfortunately, continues to struggle in this postseason and has not played well now through the course of the first series against the Clippers and now in Game 1 against the Oklahoma City Thunder. But Josh Green was able to end what was a 14-4 run by the Thunder, knocking down a three-pointer to pull them within 8 at 80-72 with 4.5 minutes left in the third quarter. Kyrie Irving, again, knocking down another three-pointer to be able to cut the lead to 10 going into the fourth. But again, the Mavericks not being able to withstand the runs that the Thunder were able to go on, but more importantly, not being able to guard the three-point line that really hurt them, especially in the second half, beginning in the third quarter. And then as we got to the fourth quarter, the Thunder, obviously smelling blood, were able to push their lead to 15, outscoring the Mavericks by 5, 13-8 in the first 4.5 minutes of the period. We talked about Jalen Williams. Jalen Williams knocking down a three-pointer in that run there to really be able to push the pedal to the metal for the Thunder and really be able to put things away. In fact, the Thunder would outscore the Mavericks 22-10 in the first 7 minutes of the fourth quarter, and Jason Kidd decided to pull the plug with 5 minutes left in the game after the Mavericks were down 111 to 89 with 5 minutes left in the game. And it was all she wrote from there as the Thunder overall went on a 17-2 run to eventually push their lead to 24 with just 2.5 minutes left in the game to go on to win by 22. They shot 71% from downtown in the final frame. Jalen Williams, as I mentioned, a big fourth quarter with 10 points. And unfortunately, it just snowballed from the Mavericks from the second half on, especially from downtown. But what was concerning, as well as the hesitation that we saw from Daniel Gafford and Derek Lively at times when it came to finishing at the rim. We know how efficient and how devastatingly good Daniel Gafford and Derek Lively have been around the rim this year. In fact, Daniel Gafford, of course, led the NBA in field goal percentage this season, and Derek Lively has been sensational as a rookie, but there was a little bit of hesitation in their inability to finish. While, yes, you saw Daniel Gafford from a defensive standpoint, he was able to have in this game what was 5 blocks for the Mavericks, not being able to finish consistently at the rim as he went just 5 of 12. Derek Lively, the second, just 1 of 3 in 13 minutes in terms of his shot attempts as well. You've got to be much more efficient at the rim, and we know that the Mavericks are capable of. In fact, Luka Dončić talking about that after the game as well, and what the Mavericks big men have to do in terms of playing off of 2 feet and finishing with force at the rim to really be able to put pressure on the Thunder. Here's Luka Dončić discussing that.
Luka, what more can you do to try and get the rim running game going? You and Gaff, it seemed like y'all were struggling to get going.
Yeah, I think both D-Live and Gaff, have a lot of reservation. They just need to, I think we talk about playing off two legs and just go dunk it. If Chet's going to be up there, there's going to be a small down, and he just needs to, they both need to go and dunk that.
So for the Mavericks there, in terms of Luka Dončić, have to be able to see the big men be able to finish at the rim. Got to get the vertical game going when it comes to what the Mavericks are needing to do to be able to improve in that area. And if the Mavericks are going to be able to win this series, they've got to be able to take advantage of punishing the Oklahoma City Thunder on the inside. But most importantly, they've got to win the loose balls. They've got to win the 50-50 balls. And I think that effort will be much more improved in game 2. And maybe for the Mavericks, when it comes to Jason Kidd, he likes to be a counterpuncher coach, which means losing game 1, unfortunately, but making the adjustments which the Mavericks have been able to do in the Jason Kidd era in the postseason to really be able to handle business. In fact, we know that the Mavericks got down 2-0 against the Phoenix Suns before eventually winning that series. They were down, obviously, 1-0 against the Clippers before eventually winning that series in 6 games. But this Thunder team is a little bit different. They've got a lot of guys that can shoot the ball from 3, that can finish in transition, and have a lot of different skill sets. And their defensive intensity was consistent throughout the game, holding the Mavericks, of course, to just 95 points. But again, what concerned me most was the fact that the Mavericks, who have a size advantage on the inside, got dominated on the glass, especially on the offensive boards, where the Thunder were able to get 16 offensive rebounds in the game. And as we mentioned a little bit earlier, a team that was second worst in the NBA in terms of offensive rebounding production this year. In fact, they out-rebounded the Mavericks by 13 overall, 52-39. And the Mavericks have got to find ways to stay out of foul trouble, which is something we've talked about when it comes to Daniel Gafford as well. If this team is going to beat the Thunder, you've got to be available on the floor. You've got to be able to take advantage of your size that you have in the middle against the Thunder and punish them time and time again in terms of efficiency and finishing at the rim, but also being able to clean up possessions when it comes to not allowing second chance opportunities and offensive rebounds for the Thunder, where they should not have that advantage against you in terms of all the size that the Mavericks present. Yes, they miss the defensive versatility and the three-point shooting of Maxi Kleber, but at the same time, the Mavericks do have enough based on what is on this team to be able to handle their business and to be able to clean up the mistakes that they had. And I thought the Mavericks beat themselves quite a bit. You give the Thunder a lot of credit for taking advantage of the miscues that the Mavericks have, because that's exactly what the Thunder do and have been doing all season long. But if you protect the ball, finish at the rim much better, where the Mavericks were just 42% on 2-point field goals, where they went 21 of 49 in 2-point range, you cannot be that inefficient and expect to win a game against this talented Oklahoma City Thunder team. And unfortunately, that was the case in game 1. So as we start to look forward to game 2, for the Mavericks, the adjustments are simple. cleaning up your sloppy play, being able to protect the basketball and value the basketball that much better, being much more crisp and consistent and communicate better on your coverage and your rotations to get out onto the shooters of the Oklahoma City Thunder, where they've got a lot of guys that can knock down threes, and you saw that during the course of game one, whether it was Lou Dort, whether it was Shai Gilgeous-Alexander, whether it was Aaron Wiggins, where it was Isaiah Joe, Chet Holmgren, a number of guys that punished you from three. You've got to guard the three much better. And for the Mavericks, guarding without fouling. There were some really bad fouls at times in this game. PJ Washington picking up that third foul that he did was not a good foul that sent him to the bench with 8 minutes left in the second quarter. You've got to be able to ebb and flow with the officiating. That, yes, I know Ben Taylor, Tony Brothers, not necessarily on the Christmas list of Mavericks fans, but at the same time, this is what the playoffs call for. Adjusting, playing with poise, and understanding how the game is being officiated to be able to learn how to deal with the circumstances that you're playing with to be able to beat your opponent on that particular game, because every game is going to have a different story. Every game is going to be officiated differently. And I thought the Mavericks did not come out and be able to adjust the way that they needed to in order to defeat the Thunder. But more importantly, they beat themselves throughout the course of game one. In fact, shooting just 33 of 84 from the field at 39%, it's not going to get it done. And if you're the Mavericks, you've got to be able to turn that around going into game two, and I believe that they will. Now, what that looks like from a shooting standpoint, especially from Luka Dončić, as he continues to deal with that knee injury, he's got to find some semblance of his three-point shot once again to really take some of the pressure off of the Mavericks when it comes to a scoring standpoint. Kyrie Irving, yes, will continue to try and get things going, but he's got to be much more of the aggressor as well when it comes to the first half to be able to put this Mavericks team in position. But most importantly, they cannot allow the Oklahoma City Thunder to out-hustle them, to be able to out-rebound them, and provide more energy and effort on both ends of the floor. And maybe some of that is due to the youth of the Thunder. We know that they're the youngest team to ever get the number one seed in NBA playoff history, but you can control energy and effort, and that simply wasn't the case. The mindset that you've got to come out with, especially against a team as good as this, has to be there from jump, and the Mavericks simply did not have it in game one. But that has to be paramount in game two moving forward. They will find a way. They need to find a way to make sure they're not 0-2 coming back to Dallas for their game on Saturday when they get ready to take on the Thunder in game three. But if you're looking for keys to victory going into game two, rebound, defend the three-point line, and limit second chance points and opportunities for the Thunder, and being able to value the basketball, because if you do, you will be able to be much more efficient. And for Derek Lively and Daniel Gafford, being able to finish at the rim and not being afraid of the middle. Yes, there will be times where Chet Holmgren will block your shot. He was top 5 in the NBA for a reason in terms of block shots. He's a great defender that can not only knock down shots from three, but is also extremely versatile on the defensive end. Take the challenge and be able to put it into Chet Holmgren's chest and challenge him to be able to defend the paint, and to do so repeatedly over and over again with Daniel Gafford and Derek Lively, and establish a physical dominant presence on the inside that will allow you to hopefully get some easy buckets at the rim, but also get these Oklahoma City Thunder defenders into foul trouble. And if you can, now you're being the aggressor, setting the physical tone and allowing yourself to play the kind of game that you want to, whether you want to get up and down the floor because you can with pace, or if you want to play in the half court off the pick and roll situations where Luka Dončić and Kyrie Irving are able to work well with Lively and also Gafford as well to be able to finish at the rim. You have to dictate pace if you're the Mavericks, and it starts with setting a physical tone and understanding that if you can, based on the way that the game's being officiated, take advantage of that early and often, and then on the defensive end, be able to do the same to bother the shooters of the Oklahoma City Thunder, because that simply wasn't the case. I thought the Thunder were way too comfortable in game one, being able to get to their spots, being able to finish the way that they wanted to, and they were able to get out in transition, and they slowly and methodically beat the Mavericks down, especially in that second half, and using their ability to shoot the ball from three to really put that pressure on the Mavericks, and Dallas was simply unable to recover as far as game one is concerned. But those are the things that have to change going into game two for the Mavericks to find themselves getting a win. And if they can, they will even up this series at 1 game apiece before heading back to Dallas for Game 3 on Saturday, where the pace in terms of this series will continue to be fluid. Every other day, these teams are playing, so the Mavericks will have to find a way to make sure that Luka Dončić is able to get the rest that he can, but also be productive, especially on the three-point line, because that simply has to get better for the Mavericks to win this series and be able to move toward winning Game 2, being better from 3, and that's starting with their superstar in Luka Dončić, who, again, was just 1 of 8, uncharacteristically 1 of 8 against the Oklahoma City Thunder, where we know he's dominated against them. You look at the 13 games that he's played against them throughout his career, Luka Dončić had spectacular numbers against the Oklahoma City Thunder. That simply wasn't the case in Game 1. We will see if Jason Kidd and his team can make those adjustments going into Game 2 on Thursday night. I'll have the pregame show beginning at 8 p.m. on the Dallas Mavericks Radio Network with tip-off at 8:30, as you can hear that on 97.1 The Eagle, again, for the Dallas Mavericks Radio Network. That'll do it for this episode of Inside the Mavs. Again, thank you for joining me here on our latest episode. Make sure you download and subscribe to the Inside the Mavs podcast wherever you get your podcast for free. Give it a 5-star rating and write a review for it while you're there. And if you're watching this on my YouTube channel, at Kevin Gray Sports, like and comment on the video as well. Let me know your thoughts on the Mavericks and what happened in Game 1 and what they've got to improve on in Game 2 to even up the series at 1 game apiece. And you can follow me on Twitter at Kevin Gray Sports. This has been Inside the Mavs, presented by Aura. We'll talk to you later. Peace.